Khelif, they say, has identified as a woman his whole life. They say there's no indication Khelif is trans. So the Olympics thinks it's fair for a genetic male to punch a woman so hard in the face she quits and cries, as long as it says female on her passport. And they're gonna let this guy keep beating up women in Paris and they're just gonna hand him a gold medal for it?
So that was obviously gross. I mean, it was Jesse Waters. You knew that it was going to be pretty gross. It also represents another retreat on the right where before they would claim that they want to focus on biological women who have the right genitals. Well, now that's not good enough. So he's taken a step back from biological woman to genetic woman, which doesn't even mean anything. But that's where we're at in terms of their understanding of what exactly a woman is. But what you saw right there is a story that's been literally everywhere. I believe last night, every single Fox program had a segment on this, a story that had already been debunked for hours and hours by the time they went live.
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back. Because before the video continues, we just want to urge you to lend your support to TYT. You power our honest reporting. You do it at tyt.com/team, and we love you for it.
But they're focusing there on the victory of Algerian boxer Imane Khelif over Italian boxer Angela Carini, who quit 46 seconds into their bout. And as a result of that, some people immediately began tweeting that Khelif was trans and that this was a man engaging in women's sports. And I am sure there are many right-wingers that simply believe that they trusted the wrong people and went insane and started calling for Khelif's head. Of course, Khelif is not trans. The reason that, as Jesse Waters says, there's no evidence she ever identified as anything else is because she has always identified exactly as what she is and what she was born as. But despite that, we're supposed to do this thing now where we try to provide information to sway these people and bring them back with evidence and logic when neither evidence nor logic got them to the dark place they're in. But sure, let's spend a couple of minutes doing that. So, Khelif is an amateur boxer. Won a silver medal at the 2022 International Boxing Association Championship, had previously gotten a silver back in the previous Olympics. IBA President Umar Kremlev claimed last year that a previous disqualification from a competition last year were because, quote, it was proven they have XY chromosomes. They, a reference to she, so the misgendering continues. Now, males typically have XY chromosomes while females typically have XX chromosomes. However, there is the differences of sex development group of conditions. This is a rare condition, but it involves genes, hormones, and reproductive organs. Some people with DSDs are raised as female but have XY sex chromosomes and blood testosterone levels in the male range. So you can have elevated testosterone. So that hormone can be different than might be expected. Now, we don't know if Khelif really has DSD. The entire world is collectively making a whole bunch of assumptions and speculation about what this individual.
She doesn't. I'm going to explain why she doesn't.
Exactly. Well, I'm saying a lot of people are weighing in that are suddenly becoming experts in all this. But in a statement this week, the IBA said that women did not undergo a testosterone examination, but a separate and recognized test, they say. The statement added that the test and results are confidential. And the IOC, which is overseeing the boxing competition that we're talking about here, does not test for gender, and there never has been any evidence that either Khelif or fellow boxer Lin Yuting had XY chromosomes or elevated levels of testosterone. They have competed for years, including at the Tokyo Olympics and several world championships. Khelif, by the way, has lost 9 times in international bouts to other women. That said, we have a lot that we're gonna get into, including some of the initial tweets that went viral and made this a massive thing, but what do you think?
Okay, so first let's discuss how all this came about in the first place. That'll show you exactly why this nonsense story came up and is completely untrue. And then we'll get into why the Republicans are obsessed with this and how it's going to be their undoing, so that'll be fun. Jesse Waters said, they say this about her, they say that, who's they? So I was curious, who's saying it? Because if it turns out she failed a test, you know, and this to the great frustration of a lot of people on the left, I do think past high school that it's okay for organizations, whether it's professional organizations or the Olympics, to do testing and to say, hey, we're going to even exclude trans athletes. Okay, so a lot of the people on the left will disagree with me on that. Some of you, obviously some folks on this panel disagree with that. So I'll come back to the politics of that in a second. So did anybody do that in this case? No. So The people, who was the they? It's IBA that John told you about, and their president, Umar Kremlev. Now, why would the IBA care? Why would Kremlev care? Well, it turns out this boxer beat a Russian female boxer right before the last competition, where the Russians really wanted to win, okay? So all of a sudden, the Russian leader of the IBA says, oh, well, golly gee, I think she might have failed the test. And the other competitive person that might beat the Russian athlete as well. Do you wanna know who not only the largest, but the only sponsor of the IBA was in that event where they claimed that she failed this ambiguous test that they've never actually shared publicly? Gazprom, a giant Russian oil company, okay? Do you wanna know where this news story was leaked to? It was TASS, a Russian news agency. And when I saw that, I was like, wait a minute, I thought we weren't paying attention to the Russian news outlets anymore. I thought they were propaganda, etc. And now all of a sudden, everybody's like, well, the Russian news said it must be true, okay? So no, this has nothing to do with transgender controversies here in America. No, some crooked Russian dude running the IBA, which has now been it was decertified before this controversy, because they're a bunch of crooks, it looks like, okay? And so this guy, he says dumbass things like, oh, the head of the IOC, the Olympic Committee, is, what did he call him? Some sort of eunuch or pedophile. It's just a total, just nut job, okay? Utter nut job. That's where this story came from. To the best of our ability to tell, there was no test. They've never said what the test was. They said, it's a very reputable test we can't share with you. Or the Russian news agency is reporting it, right? So this is garbage, total dumpster fire of a story. So now, the politics of it. Kamala Harris just took the lead by about 5 points in a Trump favoring poll. She's caught him in almost all the swing states. She's passed him in Pennsylvania. She made up a 12-point lead in Nevada. Trump is sliding away. He's flailing like crazy. And you Republicans think it's a good idea to focus on the potential testicles of an Algerian boxer? Have at it, Hoss. I can't, go for it. You look like idiots. You're making a giant case out of this, like, oh, this is the most important thing in the world. Does she have potential testicles or not? Go ahead, here's some more rope, hang yourself, go for it. Okay, politically speaking, this is so dumb of the right wing to focus on this. So please keep going.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion on this, I think it's important to know the IOC basically called the IBA out on that. They issued a statement that said effectively and exactly that, Cenk, that like this was a unilateral decision made by one guy, and no one's seen those tests. But I will say, and I will push back, because I do feel like some of the anti-trans athlete speak is a slippery slope into broader anti-trans behavior and also policing of athletes writ large beyond Khelif. Earlier this week, a rugby player for the American team, Ilona Maher, was called a man because she's 6'6" and a massive unit. And she successfully helped that team win bronze, the very first time an American team has won a medal in rugby. And she was called a man. Why? Because she's big, because she's a rugby player. And so when we start to say that trans people can't play in Olympic sports, right? They can't play in the sport of their chosen gender. Then everyone becomes a cop, and everyone starts to look at everyone's makeup and their muscles and their cheekbones and what looks different and what they think in their subjective mind a woman or a man should and does look like. And so I just want to say that sometimes when we traffic in these ideas that trans people should not be able to participate in sports at these levels, it does lead to things like Jesse Waters openly saying that on primetime television. And I want to just center that when we stand with trans people, yes, even trans athletes, that all goes away and we stand with them no matter what. But you start to dabble and you open up, everyone becomes genital police. And I just have to push back on that. And you've done it, Cenk.
I totally disagree. I totally disagree. So first of all, when you have an extreme position, you have an extreme position that says, no, we don't ever ask anyone. And I think the Olympics position is actually absurd. They don't do any genetic testing. They don't do any testing. So you could, since they don't do any testing at all, you can just walk in, call yourself a female, not be trans. Trans people are actually
do it, Cenk. Do it.
Okay, yeah, all right. Well, you could say it, but then what's going to happen?
Rugby,
Somebody's going to do it, and they're going to get away with it, and then everybody's going to be furious. Okay, it's all right. I can't stand it, and it doesn't help trans people at all to have these extreme positions. Oh yeah. Don't test anyone, just take their word for it. I think it's terrible politics.
It's not an extreme position. It comes from a position of human rights, and it does help all
It's not
people.
a human right to compete in the other genders.
What you see there is when what you just saw are women, are biological women being attacked for being trans because of the anti-trans athletic narrative that has already festered and has now come for these women. And so what are the women to do? Say, I'm not a man. In fact, screw, like, I'm not a trans man. Are you kidding me? No, we all stand in solidarity together. That's how we actually fight the right when it comes to their bull crap culture wars that lead nowhere, and it doesn't serve. Look, I understand, Cenk, you're in the majority. You're in the majority. I'm in the minority. Most people disagree that trans athletes should participate in Olympic sports. Most people don't agree with me. But hell, man, I'm willing to stand on a hill that is unpopular and fight for people and for their human rights.
Yeah, look, we could spend an hour debating this, and I have in the past. But when
not really though.
Yeah,
not really debate, more of an agreement.
Okay, whatever. I'm happy to debate anybody about it. I think I don't agree, and you're never going to get me to agree by saying it's the left-wing position, it's the pro-trans position. I don't think it's a pro-trans position at all.
You should just offer a platform. You don't have to agree.
All right. So when your opponent is in the middle of doing something radical, step out of the way and let them do it instead of stepping in the way and saying, "Hey, I'm more radical." Okay, I think it's terrible politics. It's terrible for trans people. I think it's terrible for the LGBTQ community, and I think it's terrible for the people who are looking to defeat Trump. So can we please get out of the way and let the Republicans do the dumb things?
I think you're laying out a hypothetical that is conceivable. Someone can conceive of it happening, but I think the reason you keep having Republicans over and over, by the way, there's already another case of this in boxing. You identified Francesca, a case in rugby. There are so few trans athletes that the right constantly invents trans athletes to attack. That is how hypothetical their problem is, that they can't even talk about it actually happening. They just keep pointing at people who aren't trans and saying they're trans. In sports, it even not Michelle Obama gets to be trans because they need someone to be trans. The wife of Emmanuel Macron has to be trans because they need someone to be trans. They invent trans people because trans people do not constantly transgress and ruin their lives, so they can't actually point to them. They have to invent fictional trans people to talk about.
That's exactly my point, and I totally agree with John on that, even if we might disagree on the other things. So my point is, at most, this affects 7 people in the country. So I'm not saying that you should abandon those 7 people. We have an honest difference of opinion on how to help those 7 people, okay? But if the Republicans are making a giant deal out of how much they hate those 7 people, okay, let them punch themselves in the face over and over and over again. So that's why politically, guys, do not get mired in this muck, right? Make fun of them for inventing trans people to hate. You're totally right about that, John. They hate so much that they have to invent problems that don't even exist, and then make fun of them for that. I think that's a much better political strategy. And by the way, I found a quote of the idiot who runs the IBA. He called the head of the IOC a chief sodomite.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, and so look, when the Republicans are like, "Oh, I love that guy who called the other guy a chief sodomite." Great, wonderful. Here, come, tell everybody, because you look so stupid and hateful.
Don't call them weird, though. I want to make a couple of quick points about this specific case, though. So on her and her record, so like when you find out that she has lost 9 times, that could influence your evaluation of whether it's fair for her to compete. When you find out that in her 37 victories, she has only 5 knockouts, it goes against attempted narrative that she is She-Hulk and no person can stand against them. But the issue with that is we can't expect them to know that, because none of the people, and we can show you J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk and Riley Gaines and Donald Trump and Valentina Gomez and Jesse Waters and literally all of them complaining about this, none of them give one single quantum of a damn about women's boxing. I want to be super clear about that. None of them watched a boxing match. They didn't watch this one. None of them, even after this, will watch a single one. They don't care about women's boxing more than they care about literally any women's sport, to be very, very clear. And on the evaluation of what is a woman, a question they love to ask, they kept saying it's not a social construct. It's not a frame of mind. It's not what you believe yourself to be. It's not an identity. It's in your pants. It's your genitals. Oops, that's not good enough. It's not that, because she has too much testosterone. That's it. It's the hormones. If you change your hormones, then it doesn't matter if you were born with a vagina. You're not anymore because your hormones changed. Now you're a man. But they don't believe that hormone replacement therapy changes your gender. They've never given ground on that. And suddenly that's their retreat point, is if your hormones are out of whack, it doesn't matter what's in your pants. The entire thing is ridiculous. So the final point I want to make, and I apologize, I've been thinking about this for like 48 hours straight. If they wanted to talk about protecting women, there's a rapist at the Olympics right now. There's a volleyball player who raped a 12-year-old. They don't got anything to say about that because they don't care, because they're not paying attention. But also, to be clear, if they wanted to talk about how important female athletes are and their amazing accomplishments and all that, and if they could ever bring themselves to do that without it being about a trans athlete, Katie Ledecky became the most decorated American woman in Olympic history. Simone Biles is now the most decorated female gymnast in world history. The literal GOAT. They did amazing historic things, and not a single one of these people cares at all about it. Not interested whatsoever, because women are irrelevant. All of this is a defense mechanism from a movement of misogynists that know how regressive they look when it comes to women and are constantly desperately looking for a shallow cloak that allows them to pretend that they give a damn about women for even a single second. That's all this is.
Amen.
Yeah.
And also, just a correction, it's cisgender, not biological. So let's just be able to say cisgender women. We should normalize cisgender. That's easy enough for us to do.
I will only say that when I say that, I'm saying it's the way they use that term. I don't use that term, but they say that's what they want, and then it's not good enough in the end.
Yeah.
And I do know it's a minority, and all I have to say, all I am saying is that if and when there is a trans athlete, can we stand with them? And can we see and tie our own liberation together and our own defense against this bigotry together? And me as a feminist, me as a cisgender woman, I believe that my own liberation, my fight against that misogyny that John's talking about, if someone were to call me a man, say, I'm not a man, but also I stand with trans people, I stand with trans athletes. And I hope that we will see that eventually one day, even for those 7 people. I do think it matters.
Yeah, all right, last thing I'll say on it is similar to what John was saying. Imane Khelif has lost 9 matches, but they're convinced, oh my God, this is a giant issue. She's dominating the sport. So when I was gonna make a similar point about Lineker, she won the 1500 meter race by 17 seconds.
That's insane.
It's unheard of. There was no one else in the frame. It looked like there was no one else in the pool. You know how many of the top 20 times in the top swimming race, Katie Lineker has come in #1? In other words, she owns the record of the top 20, all 20. She has all 20 of the fastest times, okay? She's unbelievable. So they don't care who's actually dominant in the sport. They don't actually care about the competition. Oh, well, look, man, if you have a man, you can't compete and blah, blah, blah. Katie Lineker's killing them, no matter who's in the race, right? They don't care, that it's unfair that she has a genetic advantage because she's better than them, right? That's the whole point of the Olympics. All they care about is how do we get people to focus all their hatred on people that are in the LGBTQ community. So Khelif is not dominant in the sport. It doesn't matter. They're just using it as an excuse to attack that community because their whole point is hatred. That's why this is so dumb politically. They keep assuming that the average American is as hateful as they are, and they're incorrect. Let's step out of the way and let them clown themselves.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.